It's time for Stardom Incentive because it's Wednesday every single week. Michael Florio on NFL.com has your starts and sits for all of your fantasy players. We're going to start here with the quarterbacks. Last week, Florio said that Tua Tagovailoa was the number one start, and he was for 3 quarters. Then he put him on the bench because they were scoring too many points. So let's get back into some quarterbacks here, Mike, and we'll start with one quarterback who's been a little up and down, but you've called it every single week. What's the week here in week 4 for Daniel Jones?
He's been featured in this segment every single week so far this season. This week, we are starting Daniel Jones, and a big part of it is just because of the matchup. Seattle has allowed the second most passing yards so far this season. They are one of just 2 teams to allow over 1,000 passing yards. Jared Goff and Andy Dalton got them for over 22 fantasy points apiece, and they only generate pressure, which is a big thing against Daniel Jones, about league average. It is a huge drop-off from what the Cowboys and Niners do. I would go ahead and start Daniel Jones this week.
Every single week. He's all over it. That's why he's the Dimes Whisperer. Disregard my disrespectful dime here. I'm sorry to everybody involved in the National Mint. That's a bad dime. But you know what? Justin Fields things have not gone well in 2023. Is this the week against this defense where we start Justin Fields with confidence this time?
You could call me crazy if you want.
You're crazy.
I'm starting. There we go. I'm starting Justin Fields. And look, I love that he ran the ball more last week. I'm hoping that we get that even more, but this is solely about the matchup. Right now, the Broncos, they just allowed 70 points last week, and right now they have allowed the most passing and rushing touchdowns in the NFL, the most rushing yards, the 4th most passing yards, and they have allowed nearly 24 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Even Sam Howell had a big day against them.
Okay, there we go. Just please, Justin, please, let's make it happen. Bears offense, we need this at this point in week 4. Let's go to Joe Burrow here, because it was a bounce back for not just Joe Burrow, for the entire Bengals offense. Joe didn't have the numbers we wanted. What's he going to do this week?
It pains me to say this, but I am sitting Joe Burrow until he starts to look like Joe Burrow again. If you watched him play at all this season, he is clearly not healthy. He's averaging less than 9 fantasy points per game and has only broke double digits once all season. He has completed 1 deep pass, has 2 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions, no rushing ability. He does not look comfortable in the pocket, and that is what scares me. The Titans allow a lot of pass game production, but they get pressure on the quarterbacks. They're around what the Browns get, and they have way more pressure so far than the Rams and Ravens, and he struggled against all of those defenses.
And he's also, his face is, he's trying to figure things out right now. Just get healthy, Joe. That's what we need from Joe Burrow. Those are some quarterbacks. Let's get to some running backs. This guy scored 76 billion points in week 3. Are we starting Devon Achane this week?
He just gave you 200 yards and 4 touchdowns and over 50 fantasy points. Are you thinking I'm going to come out here and say to sit this guy? No. You need to get him, and I would start Raheem Mostert as well. Get both of them in your fantasy lineups. Look, I know all the stats were great last week, but what stood out to me is he looked as fast and as explosive as they advertised all summer long, and the Bills have allowed nearly 6 yards per carry, the most in the NFL. I think this is a score fest with a ton of points being scored on both sides of the ball. The Bills struggle against speed especially. Get this guy in your lineup.
I put a Bronco up there so he could remember what it was like. Devon Achane was spectacular. Breece Hall here. At one point, Breece Hall was still leading the NFL in yards per carry. The Patriots come in, that has gone away. Are we starting Breece Hall here in this game?
It pains me to say, but I'm sitting Breece Hall right now. Look, I want nothing to do with the Jets offense as a whole. Outside of that big first quarter he had on Monday Night Football, in his last 10 quarters, he has scored just 9.4 fantasy points. The Jets are mixing in 3 different running backs. Their O-line is completely in shambles right now. I love that Hall got more work last week, but against the Chiefs, who have been extremely stingy to running backs, this could be a blowout where the Jets kind of have to abandon the run early.
All right, well, as long as they're not pointing fingers, because that's what Aaron Rodgers says. Alvin Kamara's back. Are we starting him in his first game back?
He's back, and we are starting Alvin Kamara. Look, the running back landscape is rough right now, so many of you out there are probably very excited to get Kamara back into your starting lineup. And I know the Bucs' run defense is pretty tough, but they did just allow over 200 rushing yards to the Eagles, and there is a bunch of volume up for grabs with Alvin Kamara. I am excitedly putting him back in all my starting lineups.
Alvin Kamara back. We're glad to have you back, Alvin. These are some starts and sits. You want some more starts and sits, you can go to the website. Why don't we give you some bonus ones because we got the wide receivers and the tight ends coming up, but you need more quarterbacks, more running backs. Russ and Brock Purdy are starts, as are Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook. But the problem for Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, A.J. Dillon, Brian Robinson Jr., all sits playing against those defenses. Of the starts and sits, we're going to do some wide receivers and tight ends. We'll start with a guy who had a little bit of a down week, second in a row, Calvin Ridley. Is he a start this week, Mike?
I've seen you all in my mentions worrying about Calvin Ridley and everything, and I'm here to tell you to relax this week. Look, Calvin Ridley is still going out there and getting a ton of opportunities. He leads the Jags in routes, targets, air yards. He has 3 end zone targets. He's tied for the team lead in yards, and he nearly caught a touchdown in each of those last 2 games. If he comes down with those, we're talking about him very differently. Plus, are you going to sit him in what I think is the ultimate revenge game this week against his former team? No, you're going to start Calvin.
It's a capital R revenge game. No, you're not doing that. Just start Calvin Ridley. Nuke Hopkins. There's not a lot to feel good about in Tennessee. Make the people feel better, Mike. Are we starting Nuke Hopkins here week 4?
I can't make you feel better. I'm sorry. I think it is time to sit DeAndre Hopkins. He has had 7 or fewer targets in 2 straight games. His fantasy points and snaps have decreased in every game this season. His yards per route ran his lowest since 2017. Extremely low catch rate. The Titans have 1 passing touchdown this season. I promise you, it is not DeAndre Hopkins' fault. He is still a very good wide receiver, but this passing attack is dragging everyone down with it, including DeAndre Hopkins.
I just put a red X on there. They can't stop anybody through the air. Derrick Henry had 2 fantasy points last week. It's a struggle right now in Nashville. We'll leave there, and we'll get over to a little bit of Tank Dell, the rookie, playing very well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Does he follow it up with a nice game? Are we starting him in week 4?
We are starting Tank Dell. Look, he's been the Texans' top target 2 weeks in a row, has 17 targets in that span. He's given you over 20 fantasy points in each of the last 2 games, and that is despite having a touchdown called back and him getting tackled once at the 1-yard line. He could have had a monstrous 2 weeks. The Steelers allow a lot of production to wide receivers. Get this man in your right there. Get that tank in your lineup.
Drop that tank into your lineup. And we're not talking about not necessarily trying to achieve all the success you can on the football field. We're talking about Tank Dell there. Let's get to this guy, Kyle Pitts. He has a history with this man. Okay, a lot. In fact, this is what Mike said last week about Kyle Pitts. Is this the week? Michael Florio, are you starting Kyle Pitts?
Look, I already feel your sighs and your eye rolls and all of that through the screen. I'm giving Kyle Pitts one more chance. Look, I know it has been rough to start the year, but I'm giving Pitts one more shot.
You heard? That's video evidence. He said one more shot. There was that game against the Lions. Mike, is this the week? Are we sitting Kyle Pitts?
Listen, Pitts, it's not you. It's not me. It's your quarterback, but we have to sit Kyle Pitts in fantasy, unfortunately. Last season, 59% of his targets were uncatchable, and I was like, oh, there's no way that could get any worse. It's 53% this season, uncatchable. Last week, in the best matchup for a tight end, he gave you the same number of fantasy points as his teammate, Jonnu Smith. It is extremely frustrating right now, and at this point, I'm begging for Taylor Heineke to start because he might be our only chance to get Kyle Pitts fantasy relevant.
There's a yes on the other side of this. This is just a no. Because if Michael Florio is sitting Kyle Pitts in week 4 2023, I don't know who else. This man was the last one standing, and Kyle Pitts, it's, I guess, officially over. Sam Laporta had a good week last week. The Lions tight end, is he starting again?
He is a must-start fantasy tight end right now. All he did was go out last week, finish as the tight end 1, giving you over 22 fantasy points. He has been a top 8 fantasy tight end every single week this season, and right now, the only tight end with more fantasy points is TJ Hawkinson. I mean, yeah, it's a good matchup. None of that matters. The usage is there. It is a 2-man passing attack right now for the Lions. Get Sam Laporta in all of your lineups.
Everywhere. You need Sam Laporta. He's been upgraded to a must-start. And we go from Sam Laporta to Darren Waller taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Are we starting Darren Waller?
Darren Waller managers, just breathe a little bit. we are still rolling with Darren Waller. I know he's had 2 down weeks. They also came against arguably 2 of the toughest defenses in the NFL, and it really wasn't all on him. I mean, Daniel Jones gave you less than 5 fantasy points in each of those games. And the one good game with a good matchup, he was a top 5 fantasy tight end. And the Seahawks have given up the 6th most yards to the position. Last year, they allowed the most fantasy points per game. Get him in your lineup.
All right, head over to NFL.com to look at the full list of starts and sits. Here's some more, all for you here on Fantasy Live. Jamar Chase, DJ Moore, both starts. Jahan Dotson, Kendrick Bourne are sits. Luke Musgrave and Pat Freiermuth starts at tight end. The sits, Zach Ertz and David Njoku taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Those are your sits from Michael F. Florio.